On March 10, 1928, in Los Angeles, California, Christine Collins let her 9-year-old son Walter go to the movies, but the boy never came back. Or did he? After 5 months of searching, the LAPD told Christine Collins that they'd found her son in the state of Illinois. But when the mother was reunited with the boy, she swore that the child was not her son. Today on Scream to Screen, we're going to put out an all-points bulletin on the true story of the missing child that inspired the 2008 film, Changeling. Christine Collins was a single mother who worked as a manager at a telephone company. When her son Walter didn't return from the movies on that late winter day in 1928, Collins was at first convinced his disappearance was an act of retribution against the child's father. Walter's father was a common thief and a con man. He was serving time at Folsom State Prison for armed robbery. But this theory turned out to be a dead end, and the police continued looking elsewhere. Soon, Walter's disappearance received nationwide attention, and the Los Angeles Police Department followed up on hundreds of leads, each without success. As the weeks went by, the pressure mounted on the LAPD as the public demanded to know why this suffering mother hadn't been reunited with her son. But then, 5 months after Walter's disappearance, the LAPD claimed that authorities in DeKalb, Illinois had found Walter. The boy in Illinois claimed to be Collins' son, and after exchanging letters and photographs, an overjoyed Christine Collins agreed to pay for the child's train ticket back to Los Angeles. However, Collins' elation was short-lived. Upon meeting the child, she instantly came to a chilling conclusion. The boy was not her son. LAPD Captain J.J. Jones assured her that the boy was indeed Walter. Collins pushed back, insisting he wasn't Walter, and that in person she could tell the boy's appearance was drastically different. Captain Jones responded that her son simply looked different because he had matured and experienced stress over the past 5 months of being on his own. He then told the disbelieving mother the 4 words which would haunt Collins for the rest of her life. Try the boy out. Jones pushed Collins to take the boy she believed to be a stranger home with her, to try him out for a few weeks. The beleaguered captain was under immense pressure to close the case, most likely because the heretofore fruitless search for Walter Collins was contributing heavily to the public's growing perception of the LAPD as a corrupt and incompetent institution, a perception that turned out to be well-founded. Christine reluctantly agreed to the captain's orders, and she took the boy home with her. But she returned 3 weeks later, firm in her resolve that this child was not hers. And she didn't come alone. Collins brought with her Walter's dental records and a small army of friends to the police station, all of whom backed up her stance. They all insisted that this child wasn't Walter Collins. Rather than admit his mistake or his outright ruse, Captain Jones did what he usually did. He got angry and bullied his way out of the situation. According to the Los Angeles Times, Jones allegedly accused Collins of shirking her duty as a mother and trying to make buffoons out of the police. Calling Collins the most cruel-hearted woman he'd ever known, Captain Jones then told her that she was a fool. This insult to a resolute and desperate mother paled in comparison to what Jones did next. Not only did the captain refuse to believe Collins' protests that the boy was not her son, he had her committed to a psychiatric ward. One could think this gross mistreatment of Christine Collins could be simply chalked up to Captain Jones acting alone, abusing his authority as one bad cop in the LAPD.
You're becoming agitated.
Yes, I'm not saying that because he's not my son.
Orderly!
He's not my son.
Orderly!
My son is missing.
The patient's becoming hysterical.
My son is missing.
See to it she's sedated properly.
No.
Orderly, there you're at hotel. Dirty.
Stop it.
Hey.
Stop it. Get back.
Get her out of here. Stay out of this. This is none of your business. This is police business. All of you. You'll stay out of it if you know what's good for you. You'd think you were enough trouble with the law already, being a whore, wouldn't you? Attacking a staff member. Room 18.
No! Stop it!
but the department's corruption ran all the way to the top. Jones's boss was LAPD Police Chief James Two Gun Davis, and Davis had earned his nickname by not only licensing his men to kill anyone caught in the act of committing a crime, but encouraging them to shoot first and ask questions later, or not at all. Because to Davis, every criminal they gunned down in the streets was one less competitor to deal with later. Competitor, because with Davis at the helm, the LAPD had become the most successful gang in Los Angeles. Officers of the law would even hire themselves out on occasion to the city's criminal underworld as a protection racket, not unlike the mob itself. Under his command, Chief Davis's detectives and officers in effect became hitmen with badges. The Collins case was merely the last straw for a citizenry that had grown fed up with Two Gun Davis's crooked approach to law and order. It was also most likely the reason his employee, Captain Jones, sent Christine Collins away to a psychiatric ward to silence her. The Collins case needed to be closed, and the LAPD needed to appear as if they were fit to protect and serve. But Jones must have had his own doubts, or been worried his cover-up would soon be discovered, because after sending Collins to a psychiatric ward, he went and questioned the child from Illinois, who was claiming to be Walter Collins once again. In doing so, he extracted a startling confession from the boy. The child admitted he was not Walter Collins. His name was Arthur Hutchins. He was a 12-year-old runaway who fled an abusive home and some minor trouble with the law in his hometown. And when he was picked up by the police in Illinois and asked, because of a passing resemblance, if he was Walter Collins, Arthur said he was. He pretended to be Walter, simply so he could get a free trip to Hollywood and meet his favorite movie star, Tom Mix. Christine Collins was finally released from the hospital 10 days after Hutchins confessed, and she immediately sued Jones and the LAPD. She won the case, but even after years of fighting, never saw a penny of the judgment, and she never saw her real son again either. In European folklore, a changeling is an offspring of the fairies that swapped in secret with a human infant. According to legend, the stolen human children are then given to the devil. What likely happened to 9-year-old Walter Collins is no less devilish, even if it is, sadly, much more mundane. The Wineville chicken coop murders were a series of abductions and slayings that occurred in the city of Los Angeles and in nearby Riverside County between 1926 and 1928. The perpetrators of these dreadful acts were Sarah and Gordon Northcott, a mother and son team of serial killers who together kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered a number of young boys. One of these boys was believed to have been Walter Collins. This conclusion was reached mostly because of confessions from the Northcotts themselves, as well as testimony from a younger family member named Sanford Clark, who they had also abused and forced into helping with their deeds. But Walter's fate was not conclusive. Authorities found 3 shallow graves at the ranch, exactly where Clark had stated they would be found. However, these graves did not contain complete bodies. The evidence found in the graves consisted of 51 parts of human anatomy. This was enough evidence, along with the confessions, for the authorities to conclude that Walter Collins, along with 2 other missing boys, brothers Lewis and Nelson Winslow, as well as one more unidentifiable, headless victim, had been murdered by the Northcotts. But it wasn't enough for Christine Collins to accept that her boy was dead. Understandably, Collins no longer had any faith in the law, but she was also not convinced by Gordon Northcott's confession either. In it, Northcott kept changing his story and wasn't able to recall details like Walter's eye color or his clothing when he was abducted. The inconsistencies were enough to give the grieving mother hope that her child might still be alive. After being convicted and sentenced to hang, Gordon Northcott would later deny killing Walter. Sarah Northcott, facing life in prison, would later attempt to rescind her confession as well. Collins, determined to get to the truth about her son, corresponded with Gordon Northcott and received permission to interview him shortly before his execution. Northcott pledged to Collins he would finally reveal an honest account of her son's death to her. But he then recanted at the last minute and instead professed his innocence of any involvement. Northcott was hanged soon after, and whatever truth he knew about Walter's fate died with him. But Christine Collins was not without hope that Walter might still be alive. Another boy that the Northcotts had abducted and that the police initially thought had died as another murder victim had been recently found alive, so Collins continued to search for her son. She never stopped searching until her own death on December 8, 1964. Nearly 100 years after Walter's disappearance, the Clint Eastwood-directed film Changeling would adapt the real-life story of his mother's refusal to stop looking for her child. The film was widely acclaimed, and star Angelina Jolie would earn an Oscar nomination for her turn as Christine Collins. The movie mostly sticks closely to the facts, drawing primarily on court transcripts and official police documentation. But of course, like most movies, the film also takes some liberties to heighten the drama of what occurred, as well as simplify some of its confusion. In the film's epilogue, it states that after the hearing, Captain Jones was suspended and Chief Two Gun Davis was demoted. The film goes on to state that California's state legislature made it illegal to forcibly commit people to psychiatric facilities based solely on the word of authorities. In reality, a city council welfare hearing recommended that both men be removed from their posts at the LAPD. The disgraced officers were removed, but reinstated not much later once public interest in the case had waned. Now in league with the notoriously corrupt new mayor of Los Angeles, Frank Shaw, the LAPD would continue its unjust and criminal practices for decades to come. In real life, Christine Collins never saw a cent of any of the money they rightfully owed her when she took them to court and won. The film was accurate in regards to the introduction of the new California law forbidding police officers from arbitrarily committing someone to a mental institution without first obtaining a warrant. Another of the film's changes may seem to be only a slight alteration, but upon closer inspection it reveals the difference between the defiant heroism of the movies and the quieter kind found in real life. In Changeling, Angelina Jolie's Collins, for dramatic purposes, is shown attending Northcott's execution in person. She, along with the audience, want to see the villain done in and vanquished. Even if the fictionalized version of Christine Collins, like her real-life counterpart, never believed Northcott murdered her son, this silent confrontation allows some sense of closure to her character and to viewers who've been identifying with her harrowing ordeal. But perhaps more admirable are the whereabouts of the real Christine Collins during Northcott's hanging. Instead of attending the hanging in person, Christine Collins spent the morning in the home of the warden of San Quentin Prison, comforting the mother of the Winslow brothers, two of the condemned man's known victims. Even if she still believed her son was alive, Christine understood that the other woman knew her sons were not.